I thought I unmuted. So for those of you used to our Ask the Nurses podcast on Tuesday nights, we have a special time slot with a special guest today, Ron Vaillant from, where exactly are you in BC?
Actually, it's not BC. It's kind of around Calgary area.
Okay, from Calgary area. So you're kind of an expert in, I would say, at least that's how I found you, in the UNDRIP conversation.
Right.
And it's come up quite a bit. And we were looking to have someone on to explain it further, just to bring more education and awareness to what's going on. But and with a very important federal election coming up, we thought we needed to get you on really quickly before the 20th to kind of just answer questions and,
sure,
you know, dispute, you know, things that are out there. And yeah. But first, a little background maybe about yourself.
Alberta born, raised, you know, grass-fed. And I'm a tradesman. You know, I've always been, and my father was a carpenter. Well, he built his own house and furniture and everything else like that. And he wasn't a carpenter by trade, but meter mechanic for the city of Edmonton. Kind of a do-it-yourselfer type guy. Even my campaigns like that. And yeah, so I was a tradesman, got my journeyman ticket in 1984 for carpentry. And then 2015, the grass was oilier on the other side of the fence. So I became a pipe fitter. And so I'm a ticketed pipe fitter as well. But that's pretty much, you know, shot right now because they're just decimating the industry. And I've been, you know, since around 1984 watching, well, even before that, but I mean, really getting into it, just the globalism and what's going on. You can see it in the TV commercials, and it was just all, you know, all the propaganda was everywhere. So I did get rid of the TV back then. I did have it for actually a couple of years when actually it just happened to be that 9/11 happened. So I was able to see a fuzzy picture, you know, with everything collapsing. But yeah, I stayed away from the propaganda and just did my own research. And yeah, so I'm really well versed in what's going on. I can see and connect the dots pretty easily. And I know the big picture, so I'm a very good source on that information. And then, yeah, so politics, you know, I knew as a write-off all the way from Pierre Trudeau on. And but when Maxime Bernier started the PPC in 2018, I saw a good glimmer of hope and got involved and ended up running in the 2019 election for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies. So that's basically northeastern BC, a huge area, huge riding. And I did that because it was the most important election of our lifetimes. And now this one here is equally as important, if not more now, because it's more red alert, you know. And you know, and really what's happening now, the big issue in the election for the people around here is this whole thing of vaccine passports and the Nazi style show me your papers thing. And really what's happening is they're using this COVID thing to slide in a whole entirely new monitoring system and also manipulation system of the public. It's really the Chinese social credit score system. It's going to be called the Common Pass. That's really what it is. It's right now called the Health Pass, but it's the Common Pass for our common home. And you're going to have to go with the common, you know, herd group mindset. You can't be an individual because you're going to put everyone in danger because of the climate emergency that they're going to really start ramping up here coming up next year. And if you thought the COVID lockdowns were harsh, wait till the climate lockdowns come. So there's that. And now again, I wasn't going to run here in this election. I was just going to be like an emergency backup for that Prince George riding in case they couldn't find someone. And then my ex-campaign manager says, hey, we got a couple of really good candidates here. Ends up being someone else got in, but still I walked away and I said, okay, well, that's that, right? And then I just poking around and I noticed that the riding here is open. It's the most conservative riding in Calgary. And I thought, oh man, I mean, that's just like, you know, flashing red lights, use sirens, you got to go. So there was no one there, and that was just before the election call, like as far as the official date. And so I jumped in and yeah, grabbed my signs up in northern BC, took 4 days, came back, and I had signs up before anyone else. So I have a good sign campaign at least. And so what's happened, we raised some money, and we're going to send out flyers, and I'm going to be talking about this Bill C-15 that we're going to talk about in the flyer. It's a red alert emergency I put in there. And it's going to let people know that no member of parliament, including all of the cons, I don't want to say conservatives because they're not, the party's not conservative. So I shortened it to the cons because there's a LibCon party, right? We have the LibCon party for all these years. And right now there's only one leader, and it's Justin O'Toole. So that's what's going on there. Yeah. And yeah, so here I am running again. And that's what's going on.
Yeah. So you made, well, I mean, there's a lot of important tidbits in that, but one of the things was that you're able to connect the dots quickly, and you saw all this coming years before we got here. And I know that's like a big loaded question, but I know all of us that kind of see the bigger picture and what's going on, the globalists, these agendas and everything, you get all the anti and all the hate and just everything. Like, how do we connect the dots? What is the bigger picture? Is there any way to kind of just like explain that as we dive into each of it?
Yeah, the important thing to do is to look at the big picture first, right? And then all of these little things that come up, and they're all sort of randomly, that's how they look. They look like they're just kind of individual groups and parties and people saying, well, we want this, we want that. And they're raising, and it's all basically propaganda manipulation mostly, okay? Not everything, but I mean, generally speaking, it's just manipulation of the public opinion. And so the big agenda basically is UN Agenda 2030 that Brian Mulroney and the Conservatives signed on to in 1992 at the Rio de Janeiro summit, the year summit or whatever. And back then, I mean, I knew that was a really big summit, and I didn't know exactly that they're going to do UN Agenda 21. That I didn't learn that years after, actually, but I just knew, I heard about it and I thought, oh, that's the boys have got a big one going there. And it was. So UN Agenda 21 got rolled out there. And if people go and do some research on that, like I have some videos on UN Agenda 21 on my YouTube channel, which I recommend people go because it's pretty cutting edge. So it's under my name, Ron Vaillant. Just go on YouTube and search it out. And then from there, just click on videos, and it'll be in a timeline hierarchy of when they were uploaded, and you can just go down. There's one actually, it's got, well, I posted it twice actually, I shortened it one, but it's a Australian politician, a woman talking about Agenda 21, and she was a skeptic at first. She researched it, and it's pretty ominous. Okay, so that's the big umbrella. So what that is the UN agenda for the 21st century. Okay, so from that, they created a UN Agenda 2030, so goals and targets for the next 8.5 years now, right? But that was created in 2015, or released. It was created long before that, but it was released then. And then Stephen Harper and the cons, Maxime Bernier was there even, as a matter of fact, and they went ahead and they signed on to that declaration. And if you go and look at the declaration, you say, yeah, I agree with that, or whatever. But it's the ultimate political doublespeak. And really, when you get into it, it's reads like a communist manifesto. What it means is that the UN dictates will control every factor of life, from water to land use to how we live, and the CO2 emissions. And that's the whole thing with the climate change agenda. Why it's based on CO2 is because everything that we do as humans is dealt with in CO2. We even exhale it. And so this is just a manipulation of that in order to be able to gain total control over every one of us. And so that happened. And Maxime Bernier had a show, and I sent in a question to headquarters or whatever, and he graciously answered it. And the question was, you were there when you guys signed on to UN Agenda 2030, like what was going on, Because Maxime really wasn't clued into what was going on with the UN there. That he got educated by Mark Friesen as he drove him around Saskatchewan, and perhaps maybe he saw my videos, or other people did there. And so anyhow, what he said, the way it rolled was, Stephen Harper and the Foreign Affairs Minister brought to the table, to the caucus. They said, look, we got this thing called UN Agenda 2030. It's a file we're working on. And it's fantastic, you know, lollipops and rainbows. It's going to, you know, end world hunger and poverty and all this kind of stuff. And so everyone is busy doing their own stuff. And so they just trust their opinion because they're the ones working on it. And they say, okay, let's vote on it. And they vote on it. And so that's what it is now. But now Maxime Bernier, you know, people call him a globalist and all this kind of stuff, but he's not a globalist. Go look what he's saying. Come on, you know, and the fact that I'm even in the party or Mark Friesen's in the party, that's just totally ridiculous. You know, that's just basically, you know, manipulation to, I think it's an attack on the only political solution to what we've got going right now. And so anyhow, so
yeah.
Where do you want to go from here? You want to talk about UNDRIP itself?
Yeah,
or?
I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many things to talk about. Let's get into UNDRIP because that's really important. You made a really good point, right? And we get all these attacks too, but it's like, why would you, as passionate as you are and as knowledgeable as you are on this, why would you promote, you know, someone that goes against everything that, you know, you stand for? Like, it doesn't make sense. So people, like you said, need to kind of look at that because that is some of the things that people are trying to attack Maxime with.
Well, absolutely. You know, you see it now, it makes no sense. And the only way it makes sense is because, you know, the PPC is the only political entity that is actually, you know, anti-establishment in Canada as far as being able to gain power. There's other little parties as well, but the PPC's, you know, we've got 312 candidates across Canada, or 311, something like that, and we can form government. All it takes is people to vote for us. And if people knew what we're going to talk about here with UNDRIP, not only that, but also if they go and look at our COVID policy on the website, go peoplesparty@canada.ca, and then go ahead and click on the party platform, you'd be stunned. You know, like, it's just common sense after common sense with all the different party platforms. And yeah, so I think it's a campaign against, you know, the only movement that can actually give what people are asking for, you know. And,
yes.
Yeah, so anyhow, with UNDRIP, I'll try and be real quick here with that. Back in, I guess it was 2018-ish or so, Romeo Saganash, he's been the guy, lead guy in Canada. He's a two-time NDP. He's an Aboriginal lawyer guy. He works for the UN now, surprise. But he did a private members bill called 262. And essentially what it was is to have, you know, Canadian law in adherence with UNDRIP. Now, UNDRIP is a United Nations document. It's so that's the UN. UN, and the DRIP part is Declarations of Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Okay, so the issue with that is when I went up in northern BC, I was informed by people and actually given, do I even have it here? I had it here. Oh, there it is. I was given this book, okay? There it is. United Nations Declarations of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Now, this document took 25 years of all the experts, you know, so-called or whatever, that they pulled together, their experts, on you know, and see how thin that is? I could have wrote that in an afternoon. But yeah, so that's, and the whole thing is that there is no definition of Indigenous in this document. But anyhow, so there's Bill 262. It had passed the House of Commons, and the Conservatives were in favor of it. They even complained about it wasn't going through fast enough. And then it was brave senators who were blocking it. And then the election call happened, and then that bill gets killed. Any bills that aren't, you know, finalized get killed. So, okay, so that happened. But then 3 days after the federal election, John Horgan and his crew in BC, they adopted the UNDRIP document for BC. And now that is rolled out all behind the scenes. No one knows about it. I know a person whose family member is high up in the government there, and they're not allowed to talk to anyone about this file, UNDRIP. Okay, so it's all done in secret. And right now, 95% of BC, I'm told, is claimed. And there's an article. If people go look up Campbell River Mere UNDRIP, you'll find a document or an article there with an Aboriginal lawyer or a lawyer for the Aboriginals saying that BC is in for a shock because most of the Crown land is going to have new owners right away. They already have the new owners. They just haven't announced it. So that's where that's going. Now, I just did an interview with Brian Loving of The Right Edition, and he's a real estate developer and stuff and businessman. He said that he went ahead and he was doing a real estate development, and he had to sign off with the Aboriginals on it, you know. And why would he have to do that if they don't have a vested interest in the land, you know? And so that's the deal right now. You know, you can't even hardly turn over a stone in BC without being involved with the Indigenous now. And okay, so that happened then. And so what happened was I was making a video for the, oh, what do you call it? Oh, man. The throne speech, sorry. It was a throne speech done in the end of 2020. And in there was one line, and we will reintroduce UNDRIP because of Bill 262 got killed, right? So I made a video. It's on my YouTube channel. Go look at it. It's a bit of a masterpiece, I think, with explaining what's going on. So just skip to 2 minutes. I made a little surprise for everyone. And then at 3:15, you can watch on, and I add my little inserts of my comments in text. And then also I insert some videos to go along with what's going. And there you can see that. But then there is a group that reached out to us, or me, or whatever, and we started working together. And when they introduced that bill, we started letting people know about it, getting in contact with MPs and stuff. And we actually got involved with the standing committee, because the way a bill works is you have first reading, second reading, standing committee, and then a final vote. And yeah, so that all happened. And I wrote a letter talking about, as I looked more into UNDRIP, because you have to kind of know the big picture. and the more I looked at it, the more I could see how much of a kill shot it was to Canada. There's so many things in there. But so I made a letter. It got sent to all of the MPs and senators. Thank you, Cindy, for doing that. She's been working hard with that. And that was all before. And I was trying to get on big media. Like, I really wanted to get on big media. And everyone in the States was talking about their election stuff. And even now, I have many big shows, multiple times, and can't get on there, right? Can't get the voice. So even though, like, lots of Canadians know about it now who've kind of in the loop here, but most people don't have a clue, right? But anyhow, that all passed, and now it's Canadian law. And what Bill C-15 is, if you go look it up, it'll be the first edition probably that'll pop up, and that's the one to look at. Under the purpose of the bill, and this is the whole thrust of it, number 5 is what you look at. It says that basically all Canadian law needs to be in alignment with this declaration, and the declaration is UNDRIP. Below that are the 46 articles of UNDRIP, and you can go ahead and read number 26. Now that's the bombshell, or one of them. And it says that the Indigenous have the rights to the lands, territories, and resources to which they have traditionally owned, occupied, or used. So if they say that they've occupied it or used it, they can have rights to it. Okay? and that's really what's going on. And right now, Canada is being carved right up. Now, it's interesting. Back in 2000, I think it was 18, I was talking to a business owner who's Aboriginal. And he says, Ron, I'm way more connected than you are. And he says, in 10 years, we're taking Canada back. And now I know what it means. So, yeah, so that's that. And there's a whole bunch of other things in there that are really key to note. Number 5 is one to go ahead and look at, talking about that they can be a nation within a nation, you know, and that they can participate in another nation if they want to. And that's one that's pretty important. Okay, now 28, it says the Indigenous peoples have the rights to redress by means that can include restitution, or when this is not possible, just and fair and equitable compensation for the lands, territories, and resources which they have traditionally owned or otherwise occupied or used. Okay, or that has been confiscated, taken, occupied, used, or damaged without their free, prior, and informed consent. So, you know, that opens up a whole big can of worms as far as compensation for how long now? You know, like, what about Toronto? Are they going to pay compensation for the last, 150 years? So it's going to be every square inch of Canada is going to be claimed. And then number 30 basically states that you can't use military, you can't do military exercises on it unless you get their approval, essentially. 36 states that Indigenous from other countries can participate in the declaration, of another country, so they can claim basically, I think they can claim land here too. And that actually was demonstrated in a video of David Menzies when he was over in Toronto City Square, and they had a circle of tents, and they were saying that that's their land, and anyone who opposed them or reported on them got escorted out. But John Tory, I believe, the mayor there, he just let that go on for weeks. And then he's talking to an Indigenous woman who doesn't look Native American at all. She looked like she was probably from another country. She says, "This is my Indigenous land, and these are my Indigenous peoples. You know, you have to respect our territory," right? And people think that she's crazy, but that's exactly how it's going to roll out. And yeah, so 36, and then the bombshell 46, basically stating that no group or entity or anything can really go against the United Nations Charter. So essentially now, because all Canadian law has to be in accordance with UNDRIP, we're essentially, we can't go against the UN Charter. So what about the Canadian Charter? Would it be any different than the UN Charter? You know what I mean? And the UN Charter, you have to, that's ultimate political doublespeak too, you know? So there we are, you know, and no one knows about this. But if Canadians can know about this, then especially Quebecers, you know, Viva la Quebec, if they see that, then they can go ahead and say, hey, the People's Party of Canada is the only party that can actually turn this around. Even though it's law now, if we got into power and we actually had a majority, and it's possible if people just wake up to what's really going on, and I don't want to use the word wake up, but I mean, just understand what's really going on, and then we can go ahead and change that. We can, you know, revoke it, right?
So what is that like? So that sounds like basically we'll get kicked out, and I feel like a lot of people probably argue this back. Well, it was our land, we're here first, and you know, we deserve the right to reclaim it back. But what does that look like? So what does this look like for the future of Canada, like moving forward? And I believe this is all connected, I mean, it is all connected to Agenda 2030 and moving into like small smart cities and no traveling.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah. No, I mean, whatever the Great Reset doesn't knock off, I mean, I think this will, right? And yeah, I mean, there's that argument. Okay, well, the whole thing is that they never really claimed land themselves or whatever. And there's always conquest and wars and, you know, redistribution of national lines or even country, you know, changes. All that's gone on in the past. We have no ability to change that as, you know, as Canadians living now. It is what it is. We're all living in this reality now. Now, if we go ahead and do this, now this is from the UN, and you have to remember 50 nations of the UN do not, you know, look kindly onto the way we live our lives here in a free society. You know, there's dictatorships like China, right? That's a big one. Cuba and different things, and all kinds of despot dictators, you know. And so, you know, to me, this is actually, you know, seems to be like a weapon of warfare to destabilize us as a country, because now everything is just going to go crazy. Who's going to want to invest in Canada as, you know, to create resources or develop our, you know, industries and whatever? No one's going to want to with all that uncertainty, and we're going to end up having, you know, huge job losses and everything else. And that all fits into sustainable development of, you know, the Paris Accord, where they want to reduce our CO2 levels 30% below 2005 levels in Canada. And here we are all these years later, and how much has Canada grown? So it's a massive, massive, you know, the only way they can really do it now, because it's not really new technology so much per se as, you know, they have carbon capture and stuff like that. But I mean, ultimately, the way it's going to really roll out is that we're just going to, you know, the lockdowns achieve it, right? They just bring us all into our own homes. We're not doing anything, not driving, not, you know, participating in life really. And that's where we're headed. You know, it's just the way it is. And
yeah, and that's the hard part. I've been very frustrated because after our September 1st rally on Wednesday at the, you know, for health freedom at the hospitals, we've been getting just so vilely attacked over that, as, you know, as you do when, you know, your voices kind of, you know, stand out and get heard. But, you know, a lot of that is they're still in this mindset of like, this is a real virus pandemic and something's happening, and you can't even try to explain, you know, when you get into Agenda 2030 and the UNDRIP and these bills and
well,
the Great Reset. And go ahead.
No, no, for sure. I mean, that's just too far out in Looney Tune land, you know, really.
I mean, it sounds that way, right? When you try to explain it, but I mean, nothing else makes sense. And I was kind of, I had years behind me of researching medical institution and finding out the corruption of that and food and immunizations. And so when this hit in March, I wasn't aware, but like you said, once you kind of go through one door, it's a lot easier to kind of go through the rest faster and like start, you know, connecting the dots.
Yeah. It's kind of an awakening, actually, just to kind of look at things a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And that's funny, you know, because I was pounding a sign in or whatever, and the lady comes up to me and she says, "Oh, we were just at the foothills, you know, and there was a big rally there, hundreds and hundreds of people." I said, "Oh man, I missed it. You know, I would have been there if I." But anyhow, yeah. So
the next one is on the 13th, so we're getting the flyer out today.
13th in Calgary.
Yes, it's going to be another nationwide one. Across Canada, yeah. So we'll see.
We're at the foothills again. Oh, okay. 13th, yeah. Send me a link on or whatever, something. And yeah, so where are we at with all of this? Yeah, so I mean, you're getting a lot of hate mail on that. And what's the basic gist of it? That
anti-science conspiracy theories, you know, like all this stuff is not real. Like, show me that. Like I have a very hard time because, as you are well aware, it's all in plain sight. None of it is hidden. And I mean, the 17 sustainable development goals are there, you know, like you said, when they first passed it, it looks all like nice and fluffy. And it's like, why wouldn't you want this? But when you actually go through each one, you realize how devastating it is for our country, the world, like, because they want to control every aspect of our life. And I know that here in Ontario, in Norfolk County, the farmers are really trying to fight back, Farmers for Freedom, because they see like soon, you know, they're going to have complete control over our food. And like all these things are very real, and it's very hard to just show people all of it.
Yeah, I know. It's a big thing. I've been banging my head for decades. Yeah. But no, you know, people are really seeing it now, and especially as it's rolled out in our face. And really the biggest issue now in Canadian politics in this election is this Vax Pass. And I can't, lots of people I've talked to have been vaccinated, but they see that this is a very draconian measure and opening the door to all kinds of controls. You know, right now it's, you know, laid on the legitimacy of this vaccine thing, right? But yeah, so for me, when I heard, I think it was around February, March of 2020, that the UN wanted every single person in the world to be vaccinated. I thought, oh, okay. And then you couple that in with Gavi, which actually is an NGO, non-government organization funded by Bill Gates and in Switzerland above the law, basically. They state that, and this is a quote, that immunizations will play a key role in achieving 14 of the 17 goals of UN Agenda 2030. And you go and say, well, how in the world is that? And I was going to pull up something here for you to show, but I don't have it right now. But and they talk about how these things, but it's so far, it's so wild, you know, and you know, it doesn't make any sense. But they go ahead and state that vaccinations are going to help this, all these different things, right? And so I knew that it's going to be a big deal, and it's going to really be pressured and forced upon us. So whatever's in that vaccine that they want you to have, you know, I don't want it, you know, and I made my decision then. That was before Sherry Tenpenny and Dolores Cahill and all these people were talking about what was really going on. I made my decision because I could just see that this is going to be something big, right? And yeah, and okay, where are we going with this?
Just how I think how it's all connected, right? And just and just this forced idea of immunizations and why are they pushing like this pharmaceutical on us, right? Like why? I think that should raise red flags for everyone. Like when ever in history was a drug pushed on every single person in the planet?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the propaganda has just been off the charts everywhere, right? I mean, that's one big red flag for everyone to look at. You know, and then,
I'm going to grab a book while you're discussing. 1 second. Yeah.
Well, with the healthcare workers, you know, in Alberta, they were, you know, the college, they basically said that everyone has to get vaxxed, otherwise they won't keep their job, or they're going to have to go in front of a tribunal in order to explain why they're not going to get jabbed, right?
Yeah.
And So all the healthcare workers are really pressured, and really a lot of them have already been jabbed anyhow, but now they're just squeezed because they want every single person on earth, right? And that's the agenda, okay?
Down to our babies. And that's where I'm like, you need to get concerned, because it's coming after the babies. It's going to be right into the rest of the schedule with all of them.
Everyone, every single person on earth, you know?
Yeah. And
you have to ask yourself why. And then people say, well, that's because you got this massive pandemic, you know? No, it's not that. No. Because yeah, you know, you go and look at the death rate or whatever, the death rate hasn't ballooned, you know, in accordance with what they were talking about. And it really the way they played this game is with modeling. Just the same thing with climate change. Like with climate change, remember Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth, and he has that big screen on, and all of a sudden the hockey stick chart goes, whoo, you go straight up, you know. And that was Michael Mann's chart that was used there. And there's a guy named Tim Ball. He's a climatologist in Manitoba. He said that Michael Mann, because he works at the Penn State University, okay? And he said that Michael Mann should be in the state pen and not the Penn State, you know, because for his fraudulent chart. So then Michael sued Tim Ball, and it's been a 10-year court case. And then basically it was rolled out just actually in 2019. And I used this argument when I was talking at Prince George University, because everyone laughed at me about climate change. And then I used this argument that okay, Michael Mann's chart, he wasn't willing to submit it to the court in order to prove his case. And it's going to cost him $1 million for all of, you know, for Tim Ball's costs and everything else like that. So he still wasn't willing to submit it to scrutiny, right? And there you go. It's you know, people who've looked into these charts, they know that they're 8 times overcooked, right? It's all manipulation. So here you have these charts, and then when they go ahead and they were, you know, talking about the pandemic here, they basically stated that you know, they went with their charts and their projections. And so this is going to be this massive, you know, death toll. And so we got to use all these draconian measures, when in reality, you know, it didn't pan out like that, did it? You know, and
no,
so,
and that's the thing that's so hard too, because it's like, if people actually looked at the numbers, like I think it was 2017, 2018 was worse. Had a bad, you know, flu season and all these things, but no one actually wants to look at the stats. It's just, you can see how much the media and public health and all these things are just pushing this forward with, again, no critical thinking, no common sense, or just.
Well, the whole thing is, like, if I go and watch the news for any length of time, they'll pull up a doctor, or, you know, they'll pull up an epidemiologist, and then there'll be nurses that they'll interview, and they're all saying, oh my goodness, you know, here we are, and it's all this and that, right? And yeah, it's very convincing, you know. So a person who's just basically getting their information from the television is being fed all this, and I can understand how they're so, you know, stressed out about it. I mean, I get stressed out and thinking, oh my goodness, we're going to end up dying here on planet Earth, and, you know, it's only watched 2 minutes of CBC. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it's intense, and day after day after day after day. I mean,
yeah. It just, it just ingrains, but
polarizing society for sure. And that's all part of it too. Part of this plan is to polarize society and to single out those who are individuals who do not go along with the groupthink, because Agenda 2030 essentially is a fascist, socialist, I guess, communist, you know, dictatorship of unreal proportions. Hitler would be proud, you know, and any kind of person, and whenever communism comes in, it's always for the common good, for the social good of the people and the land and everything else. And so they demonize, you know, like in Cuba, they demonize the rich farmers, you know, who are, you know, they brought in cattle from Europe, and they were very prosperous, and they brought tons of wealth to the country. And then they go ahead and you know, take their lands in the communist coup thing or whatever. And if they didn't want to be, you know, a worker on the land that they own, they'd get killed. And then they went and they hauled cattle in train cars across the country, and a lot of them died. They just totally wrecked the place, eh?
Yeah. So if we don't come together and rise up and take a stance and vote PPC, and just even as people here, because we are so powerful. I think people forget how many we are and how powerful our voices are when, you know, we stand together and, you know, refuse and take action and refuse to participate and do not comply. what are we looking at the future of Canada? Because I think that's really hard for people to kind of, not to put fear in people's minds, but I want to be realistic of where this is going and why it's important to stand up to, you know, to change the course.
Well, one thing is the PBC is just one element of the thing. I think it's probably our best chance because it's the people who make the laws that have the power, right? So that, I think, is our best chance at this moment in time. And that's why we should just, you know, really torque out and get people to know what's going on and inform them and get them to not see that just voting Conservative, you know, is not going to do it because they're just part of the whole problem, right? But there's other things we can do, like this whole thing of, you know, non-compliance, obviously, and we've been doing that as a party, as individual members. I mean, Mark Friesen racked up what, $30,000 worth of fines, and Maxine got arrested. You know, Laura Lynn got fines too, and everything else like that. Non-compliance is another thing. Other people are working on other types of efforts, you know, as far as, you know, free man movement stuff, you know. So, yeah, as far as where we're headed, I mean, it's right now, I mean, you're not going to be able to travel interprovincially very soon by probably November. BC's making it, you know, by October. If you're not double vaxxed, you won't be able to go into BC. Alberta is rolling it out too. You know, it's all planned. I mean, I posted videos on this back in 2020, and that's where we're headed, right? And so this is just going to be a big monster. It's basically, this health pass is going to be like our prison bars, you know, basically. And it's, you know, I knew this back in 1992 when I bought a book called Keys of This Blood. And it's a Jesuit professor, Vatican insider, who talked about there's a global fight between the capitalist West, communism, and the papacy for who's going to run the first world government. And that's what we're into right now. And in that book, he said that as we go along in time, that there'll be more shocks and developments that it's going to basically force people to go along with it. Mm-hmm. And here we are, you know, that people aren't going to be able to, like in France, I think by October, November, you won't be able to go into a grocery store unless you're double vaxxed. And so you're going to have to do takeout.
Yes. And they made homeschooling illegal.
Oh, they did. Oh, yeah. Homeschooling illegal, all that kind of stuff. All of it. The whole plan here is to bring us into the system. So individuality has to go. Independence has to go. That's why they're going after meat, right? It's not to be healthier or whatever. It has to do with basically, you know, the cattle farmers and the various different animal farmers out there. They're very independent, right? I mean, they got their little operations going there, and they can just, the whole world could just blow up, and they could just keep on living and running, you know, life as normal. And so that's why there was an attack on that, I think. And this whole issue of losing your land is going to be a big attack on them too. Because then if someone else has the rights to the land and they say, well, hey, you know, we don't like what you're doing there, it's not really sustainable in the Agenda 2030 scheme of things, you need to, you know, get off the land, right? Mm-hmm. I see that happening too. Mm-hmm. So as far as in Canada, we're not going to be able to, unless we can fight it somehow and knock it down. But it's, you know, if the PPC got in as a majority, it's still going to be provincially mandated, you know, and that's the difficult part about it. But we could raise the alarm, and we could maybe put pressure on the provinces not to do that, versus Trudeau spending $1 billion, you know, borrowed money that we don't have in order to install the system. This system is not a temporary little card and then you discard it after the concert. You know, this is basically fully established long-term, you know, rollout of a digital, you know, passport, you know, common pass. So that's where we're headed. It's not good. I think that this whole issue of being coerced into the vaccine has to do with compliance, right? I mean, they can't, you know, legally, I don't think, force, you know, one in your arm. You have to comply to it. So there'll be pressure put on it. And it's going to be done with a lot of the big corporations. You know, that's all a part of this whole thing because, you know, the power brokers in there are kind of involved from what I see. And so we're going to be squeezed out of society. That is basically the situation. So, you know, I've told people all through the summer, prepare as you can, you know, and, you know, think about how you're going to be able to survive. Now, I think there's going to be ways around it to a certain degree, but let's say if you can find someone to go and get groceries for you, if you're completely shut out, you know, if it came down to that, then what's going to happen is with the whole carbon tax thing, is that we'll all be rationed how much food and how much, you know, things we can buy. So to go ahead and get, you know, to buy for someone else and double your allotment is going to be difficult, you know. So there's tremendous pressure. So for me, I mean, it's all very, you know, frightening stuff, but, you know, I'm a Christian guy, and that's actually what woke me up to all of this basically in 1984 is when I became a Christian, and I asked for wisdom and insight to be able to see what's really going on in the world, you know, and that has transpired with my life. And so I see this all as a biblical event, Revelation 13 and 16 and 17, where no man can buy or sell save he that hath the mark of the beast, type of thing. And so for me, it's easier to go through this than people who don't have that view, right? Because it just looks like it's just a big black hole. But I see a black hole, but I see, you know, like eternal life and unbelief. You know, it says in the Bible that eye has not seen, nor ear heard, nor has even entered into the heart of man the things that God has prepared for them that love Him. So it's just going to be mind blowing. After this world is over, and or this system that is over, and the world stays. But yeah, so it's easier to face, you know, the harsh things that are going to go on in that light. So I would recommend for people, you know, if they aren't Christians or whatever, to ask God to help them be one. And in John chapter 3, you know, Nicodemus, he was one of the Sanhedrin, the rulers of the Jewish people, went to Jesus by night, and he said, and Jesus right away says, you have to be born again. And he says, how can I be born again? Do I enter a second time into my mother's womb and be born again? And he says, you're a ruler of Israel, and you don't even know this, you know? He chews them out, eh? And but yeah, so ask for that born again experience, because really what it is that God changes us. You know, like when I became a Christian, my whole life flipped around. I mean, it was radically. I mean, I used to, like the old guys who I worked with because I was in carpentry, they swore and everything else. I thought they swore like sailors, but they were offended how I talked. Okay. Right. I mean, yeah. So I've changed a lot that way. And that's why I try not to swear, you know, I've all through these years. But it's tough if you're in an environment where all these guys are swearing all the time. But
yeah, absolutely.
So
but that's helped me a ton too. I came to God, to Christ, like in March, like 2020, more specifically this past September, just because there was like too much darkness and evil. Yeah. And it was like, this is just way beyond. And I was like, there's always a complete opposite to this. Yeah. And then so I reached out to friends and that I knew had strong faith, and they've been guiding me, but that's been the only thing that's been getting me through this as well.
Oh yeah, no, it's because that's really what's happening. It is that event. And you know, the best advice I was ever given in this world was a fellow named Brian, and he said, read the book of John with an open mind, because, you know, ask God if he's out there, you know, if he's really there, and if this is his book for us to understand, you know, the ways of, you know, his ways, to show me, you know. And I did that. And I'm thinking, oh, here I am praying to a God that who's God, you know? Am I going crazy? But I did that or whatever, and I just accepted it, and I didn't understand most of it, but I did realize that this was a spiritual book from God for mankind to understand, you know, what's really going on. And then in John 14 and 16, that the Holy Spirit will be given to you to lead you into all understanding, right? And I claim that. And whenever I would go to a church or read a religious book or whatever, I'd always ask God to show me what the truth of the matter is, you know, because I just don't go into these things blindly, because it's a warfare that's going on. But anyhow, so that's my highest recommendation for people in order to prepare for what's going on, because we don't know exactly fully what's going to roll out, but I think a lot of us have a pretty good idea. Right, and that supposed leaked liberal email is coming to pass fairly, you know, in great reality, right? And that gets to be pretty dark too. That one, that was the most concerning thing I ever heard in 2020. And I could have wrote that, or anyone could have wrote that, except for one element of that. And in there, it talked about there's going to be a COVID-21. And I was talking to Laura Lynn in an interview, Laura Lynn Tyler Thompson, and I said, look, you've interviewed everyone and their dog on this topic. Has anyone talked to you about COVID-21? And she says, no, you know. And here it is in this Liberal leaked email, supposedly. And then after I read that, 2 weeks later, I come across that there's a movie that was created called COVID-21. So movies take a year to make, right?
Yeah.
And conceptualize, and here they have that rolling out. You know, so to me, that gave a lot of legitimacy. I mean, where does this person get this information of a COVID-21? You know, and I followed it, you know, right from January of 2020, posting videos and stuff, and never heard of that.
Yeah.
So,
no, there's definitely some truth there. And I think we got to pay attention to Australia too. They're always 6 months ahead of us.
They are, yeah. And then so this whole thing with the Great Reset, I thought it was going to happen this summer, but thankfully it hasn't happened yet. I think it might actually happen next year now. But that's a big one. That's huge. That's going to be the monster right there. I mean, that's so the thing is not to borrow tomorrow's trouble today. I mean, we know that we're going down, you know, into some darkness here. We just have to be able to, you know, manage each day as it comes to us. And as we are following God, I think that, and he's just going to show us how we can manage it, right? And, you know, in Christianity, you know, Jesus flat out says, you know, you might die for your faith, right? So like a long time ago, over 20 years ago, when I started really posting stuff online and whatnot, and the information that I was sharing, I figured, man, I could get killed for this, you know, and I had to accept the fact that that could happen and be brave about it. Like when I went ahead and released the video in 2019 talking about UNDRIP and how basically it's for all the land in Canada, that no one was doing that I know of, and I figured my life was in jeopardy then, you know. So I just had to accept the fact that whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I'm just going to do what I think is right here on this, and what, you know, the way God is leading me on this. And so I'm still here. Yeah.
And have faith, and, you know, like good will win. I'm with my kids today. Just got distracted.
Oh no, yeah.
But I think coming together, I think, you know, strong communities as well. Like you said, prepare, but I think people, you know, start building strong communities where you are, support each other, lift each other out, lift each other up. And I know that, you know, exchange services, barter, like we really try and build strong networks, in-person networks where you are is going to be huge to get through this. And I know you made one of your videos I watched, you know, because this comes up a lot about, you know, can we go somewhere else? Should we leave Canada? And at one point you had thought about it, but you're like, no, this is kind of going to be where I'm going to ride this one out.
Yeah, that video scared a lot of people. Unfortunately, I wasn't trying to do that, and I really didn't.
You're just bringing truth out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's called "Oh Canada, You Have No Idea What's Coming," and it's got almost 50,000 views. So a lot of people got scared. Yeah, so that's what's going on there.
But I just think, I don't know, for me, people ask that too. And I was like, I don't know, there's nowhere else to go. We know this is a global agenda. I'm going to man this post. I'm going to stay in this country. It is a beautiful country with beautiful people. And I'm proud to be here. And I just think, you know, where else is there to go?
Well, the thing is, going to another country, you don't know the lay of the land. Like, I mean, if you've lived here all your life, you kind of know what's going on. But if you go into Central America, you're the gringo. And when the Great Reset happens and people are really impoverished, well, what about the gringos? You know, they got assets and they got things, you know, I don't know. So it's a different thing there. Yeah, I mean, everyone has to make their own decision of what they want to do, obviously. But I know people who have left Canada, you know, right? But everyone has to make their own decisions on that, obviously. And it's going to just keep on rolling out. Hopefully we can get some major pushback with this election. I've been telling people, because a lot of people are really scared with this Vax Pass. And so I've been sharing, well, the one UNDRIP video that's on my channel, actually, when I kind of broke into your event there in Kamloops. That was so funny.
That was awesome. That was great.
Yeah, because I was just, you know, living homeless there for a week on the streets there, you know, as I was waiting for some stuff to get done. And I had my little tent by the river, and I was just hanging out in this one spot in the evening. And then you guys were just a stone's throw away. He's doing this. Actually, what I saw a truck go by with 2 Canadian flags flying off the back. And I thought, what? You know, is there something going on here? You know? And then I heard you guys talking or whatever, and asked the guy who's walking by, what's going on? He said, some sort of political event. But yeah, yeah, so
there's lots going on, but I am, you know, even amongst, I think we all go through the roller coasters of, you know, being strong, having faith, you know, you go into some valleys. I know I'm on my way back out of this one. But just before like wrapping up, I know you have a lot of stuff to do, and actually we're heading back to, if anyone's in London, we're heading back to London Health Sciences Centre today at 1 p.m. To go back to the Corner Commissioners in Wellington. So that's where I'm heading after. But anything that we missed, anything you want to cover, any lasting notes to?
Well, I lost my train of thought there, but basically with this election, you know, like let's all, everyone, you know, get onto this thing, because go look at the PPC party platform on the website, peoplespartycanada.ca, and you'll see that it resonates with you. And then look at the COVID one that we have, and realize that we're not just basically some what do you want to call it? You know, we're not to split the vote or anything, because it doesn't matter whether it's liberals or conservatives. There's still UN globalist parties doing their bidding, right? We are a non-globalist UN party, and you know, the fact that I can even be in the party is a miracle, right? I mean, or Mark Friesen or Laura Lynn. I mean, we wouldn't last 2 seconds anywhere else. So that just goes to give you, you know, a good glimpse into what the party thinking is like, and the freedom that it offers of varying opinions. And so we have just, you know, under 2 weeks here to really get the message out. Like, let people, I have that video there with, you know, talking at your Kamloops rally. I'm going to make a shorter one if I can, a 1 minute one on UNDRIP. But share that and say, how come your MP in your local area hasn't warned you, you know? And then just talk about that and share the party platform and whatever, and get people to know that if they basically, all they have to do is vote for the PPC, it's all in or nothing. This is it. I mean, you can't play it safe. You can't go ahead and vote for the Conservatives and get them in the majority, because they're still going to go ahead and have the vax passed and all this UN stuff anyhow, right? And so just go for it here, and see what happens. See if we can get into power, and then we can maybe turn this ship around or stop it somehow, you know, or slow it down or something. But without that, we're toast. But that's just the reality of the thing, you know. Like, I mean, it's just going to continue on, and then from there, after the election, go ahead and do whatever you think you have to do, you know, non-compliance or whatever, or if you're going to start some other group or whatever. But now let's all just focus in on this and get this done, because it's for all the marbles now.
And yeah, because I know a lot of people are saying, you know, like you mentioned, the splitting of the votes, or that it's you throwing away a vote, or whatever nonsense. But the truth is, there's so many of us that believe in this. If we actually voted for our values and beliefs in the direction we want Canada to go in, that's a significant number of people. And if we have to make change at some point, right? Like, I think that's one of the slogans is it's time for change, and we need to start moving in a totally different direction. And that I think, you know, that is propaganda. They make us think that there's only still two parties that are worth voting for, that, you know, you have to vote strategically, you have to do this, but it's right, left, and it's all like wings of the same bird, and we need to throw another like bird in there. Like, we need to start moving in a different direction.
You know, and Chris Guy's been really slamming the PPC, and I'm trying to understand his motives for doing that. It makes no sense to me. You know, he's just saying we have to do non-compliance and everything's going to be wonderful. It's not going to work that way, because non-compliance does not run a country. The people who are in power run the country. And the PPC is that power that can change things. It's the only one. And he's going against the one that can actually bring in what he wants. So it makes no sense. So if you're being swayed by Chris Sky because of his great work that he's done, and I don't, you know, I felt the same way about him. Great stuff, you know. But now he's doing this thing, and it makes no sense unless you see it as being some kind of an attack on the actual institution, the PPC, that could actually go ahead and fix things, you know. So question that. And, you know, because when it comes to this, we're in shark territory. This isn't community league stuff, right? I mean, if the PPC can get in, I mean, then we can go and change things. That's huge. And here you got, you know, the three premiers or presidents of different countries around the world who got whacked and killed because they weren't going along with the agenda. I mean, that's how serious it is. And what other political solution is there right now? There is none. It's simple. So, you know, don't listen to Chris Guy on that. He's off the rails. He's not, and go and spoil your ballot by putting his name on it or something. Is talking, you know, come on. That doesn't, you know.
No, I know that confused me too.
I appreciate the work he's done and everything else like that, but I highly question what he's up to now, stating this stuff. And you know, oh well, I just have to call it the way it is. If something's good, it's good. If it's not, I'll call it.
Yeah. So. And I think that I've been confused about that stance too. I think the point is just to remind people that, you know, we can't in ourselves always be looking for a savior. And I think that we all agree with, right? But I mean, we still vote for like our values and beliefs. Like, don't throw it away. I still think like vote for a different party that might be able to help us. But just, I think we all need to remember that we are our own leaders as well in our health. Like, we have to take responsibility of our health, responsibility over our lives, responsibility of the choices we make, like not complying, not wearing a mask, like not doing these things. But why can't we do both? Like, still be our like saviors and leaders, but, you know, and then try to bring in another party to help us all out and work together.
I never voted for decades, you know, like, you know, it's just, why vote for a corrupt system, you know, like, and so here I am running. So that's, for me to even be running is just like, you know, jumping over the moon. I mean, it's just so wild. You were going to talk about Maxime Bernier. You had some questions about that or something?
Oh, you kind of brought them up already. I got, one was about, you know, he gets wrapped up and he's like, well, he was a globalist. He voted that in. And, but you kind of already talked about that. I knew that too. Yeah.
Well, I mean, basically Stephen Harper brought him into the Conservative Party. And so you get taken into this big system, you know, and unless you have a big picture mentality of what's going on, you're just going to be kind of bounced around like a, you know, in a ping pong machine or ping pong ball machine or whatever. And so, I mean, so yeah, he went ahead and he attended meetings for his work and associated with some people for his work. But that's it. I mean, to go ahead and say that he's a globalist now on account of that, I mean, it's ridiculous. Go look what he's doing now. You know, and look at how, you know, we're being attacked. I mean, he's not, you know, being allowed in the debates, and that's how it was in 2019. They were changing the rules. You had to have so many candidates. Now they changed it to percent. It's just a gatekeeping system, you know, to keep us out. And yeah, so if you go look what he says about globalism, he's anti-globalism, you know, and he tweets about it. He talks about it. It's in his speeches. It's in the party platform, you know.
And I mean, people are allowed to change. I just think about like the changes I've made in my life, you know, over the last like several years, over the last 6-7 years, and especially in the last 18 months, like values have totally changed. Like, I was definitely pro all immunizations, pro, you know, I thought I would get in fights about people that didn't believe in climate change. And then like all these things, and like, and I would push all these other agendas, you know, I would push all these things until I realized, like, started doing research on immunizations, research on actual natural health, research on conventional medicine, germ theory and train, then realizing climate change, like, they're not against the environment, but this is an agenda to push all this other stuff in. Like, so, I mean, you might start in one area, but then as soon as you do research and learn, you're allowed to change. And
absolutely, I've seen Maxine change. I've seen Maxine change on different positions over the course of the last 3 years. And so when he gets good information and he understands it, well, then he goes ahead with it, right?
And I think that's an amazing leader that, you know, has the ability to listen, to understand, take information, and then make a decision based on, you know, informed decision making, and to take it all in and then be like, oh, okay, I didn't have all the facts before. You're right. We do need to shift. Like, I think that's a true sign of a leader.
Okay, so let's take Chris Guy's thing that the Maxime Bernier is basically, then the PPC has been created to co-opt the freedom movement. I heard him say that on Alex Jones. I go, what are you talking about, Sky? Because this freedom movement he's talking about is the one talking about, you know, that got created with this whole COVID thing. Well, the PPC got created in 2018, long before there was any Chris Guy wandering around and on social, you know, major media, right? And to go and claim that we were created by this mysterious group, in order to be able to co-opt the freedom movement, that's insane, you know. And you go and look at, you know, all of the candidates, you know, we're all, you know, freedom movement people. Okay, so let's go ahead and take Chris Guy's, you know, okay, Maxime Bernier is a globalist, and the party is created to go ahead and to destroy the freedom movement, that, you know, his baby. Now he's claiming it. You know, go look at the candidates. Go ahead onto my YouTube channel and go and look what I posted over the course of time. You know, the fact that I could even be in this party, you know, is just insane. You know, like, I mean, I wouldn't be able to be a part of the Conservative Party or anything else because I tell it the way it is, you know. And I'm also looking to experiment into different ideas, you know. Like after the last election, I wasn't going to run again. So I just kind of let the channel, you know, kind of wander into different territories that are, you know, even out there for me, right? You know, but it's kind of like an exploration into what's going on, asking questions and whatnot, right? And still they took me on again, you know, and they're not saying I'm a liability because, you know, of what I posted and stuff like that. So, okay, so the party is that and everything else, like Chris Guy says, but look at the what if I get into power or as an MP or Mark Friesen, let's say, you know, now we got the national stage to talk about all this stuff, right? And Maxine's not going to stop us, you know. So come on, it's just,
well, that's what I look at too, is like the people in our riding here in London, Ontario. Like I've known them like fighting for this like since the start, like and pro freedom, putting everything out there, risking it all. And it's like, well, I'm voting, like they're one of us. Like I'm voting for you know, my fellow like freedom fighters. So that's the part that confuses me too, because I'm like, yeah, exactly. We said if you look at the candidates, like they are literally part of the freedom movement, trying to do what they can to get their voices heard and to make a difference. But all the candidates at the local level are all freedom fighters.
Absolutely. And we were before Chris Sky. So what are you talking about, Chris? You know, come on. Oh. Yeah. So anyhow, you can choose what you want to do. You want to spoil your ballot, go ahead. But I mean, I think that's ridiculous at this point. You know, just vote for the PPC. And, you know, like, how are we going to negatively impact, you know, a no compliance movement that Chris is doing?
No, you're gonna accelerate it.
You're not going to negatively affect it at all. In fact, it's going to enhance it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
and unify it and bring it together and make it louder and more effective. And because it's still, you know, you need, like we said, there's still two parts. Like we can get into the political system and change that, great, but we still need to like change like boots on the ground from this level too. But it works hand in hand, like both together. So.
Well, I mean, I don't want to be in this fight politically. I mean, you know, like, I mean, Mark Friesen doesn't want to do that either. Yeah. But we know, like, we'd rather fight this politically than, you know, with combat boots down the road. I mean, that's where we're headed. I mean, so, I mean, far better to do it this way. So we've reluctant, to me, it's like me volunteering in World War II, knowing that I'm going to go and storm the beaches of Normandy. You know, like I'm putting my life on the line, or, you know, like character assassination, you know, will be one thing, or, you know, like you with getting all of your emails, you know, and all of that stress that comes upon you or whatever, all the way down to getting the bullet, you know, like, so yeah, we don't want to do this, but we have to, you know, and we're passionate about it. And so, and if we do get into power, then we're going to do a good job. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I love what you guys are doing. And just, I think, you know, it's time for change, as the slogan is, and it couldn't be more true. And I know that you have amazing videos out that people can find more information on all of this, UNDRIP, Agenda 2030, and all these things. And I'll put it up again. Is your YouTube channel the best way for people to kind of find you? I mean,
that's a major platform there. It's just under my name, Ron Vaillant. Just do a search within YouTube. And if you click on videos, it'll be in a timeline of sequence of when they've been posted. So you get the newest at the top. I also am on Facebook, which actually I kind of cover a lot more stuff, I suppose. And it's open. You don't have to friend me to go and see the content. It's all public, you know, so nothing to hide. And I'm also on Twitter, but it gets a lot less, you know, posts just because of the format of Twitter, you know. But those are the main things. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I thank you very much for your time. I'm going to get ourselves organized. We're off to another hospital rally. And anyone that's interested, we're doing another national Canada-wide health freedom movement, September 13th, 2 p.m. The poster should be going out today, so stay tuned for that, because September 13th is when the BC passports come into play. So we're going to be standing up for that. And then Ontario is September 22nd. Our passports go into play. So we'll be doing another national round on then as well. So stay.
Okay. Well, yeah, send me a link for your poster or whatever.
Yeah, I will, absolutely.
I missed you totally on the other one.
Yes, no, I'll make sure you get this one. Well, thank you very much for your time. Yeah, and if anyone has more questions, Agenda 2030, UNDRIP, all these important political issues, anything about PPC, reach out to you. I know your YouTube is information. Do you have other ways? You said Twitter, or where can people contact you?
Well, I'm getting flooded with emails, but I mean, if something very important, because I'm in this election, right? I should be actually outside campaigning.
Yes.
But yeah, it's savecanadappc@gmail.com.
Okay.
Yeah. So
savecanadappc@gmail.com.
Yeah, right? I created that from the last election. Okay. And that's what my signs say, Save Canada.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I put that on, like I was trying to look for a quick description because I forgot, I wasn't too organized before getting you on, but I saw you must have done an interview with someone and it was like, why did you get into politics or become a PPC candidate? And the answer was to keep Canada sane. And I was like, so true. It was so simple, but
everything's upside down. And that's what you do to roll into a completely different system is you have to destabilize everything.
Yeah.
And you have to make it so that, people don't know what's up or down. And then you can just kind of roll them into this new system that they're rolling.
People are so confused. They don't know what to pay attention to, what's happening. They just allow it all to slip by them. So,
But if you see the big picture and you get the understanding of everything, then you have a great big anchor, right? And you can factor everything in there and not be, hoodwinked.
Swayed by this or that. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. We'll maybe try and get you on again, either right before or after, and we can discuss next plans of actions in Canada and what's
where we go from here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah. All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.